All right. Hello and welcome to Online Art with Miss Sophia. This is a new world we're living in, and it'll be a fun and challenging experience for us making art where we're not interacting with each other. So it'll be fun. You guys will have time to work at your own pace. You know, find a spot where you're comfortable. If you need a little music to help you flow, or you want it nice and quiet, you have, the freedom to really sort of design this art experience customary for what works well for you. And that's going to be something really special. The other thing is we don't all have the same art materials. So I'll be doing projects that I might be using specific materials, but you might be using, something else. Or maybe you've got some colored pencils at home, or maybe you're going to, collage with some papers and stuff. There's a lot of different ways that you guys can adjust the projects and the lessons that I make videos about. You don't have to do them exactly what I'm doing them. And that's something that is something you guys, I think, will make some really good work with, because we've been doing art together for a long time, and you get to have a little freedom with really expressing yourself individually in a way that hasn't always been as easy to do when it's a group of us all working together. So these are a couple of rainbow projects that I started with the other classes, and we're doing rainbows because it is a nice community thing that a lot of people are doing during this shelter in place time, where they're making a rainbow piece of art and they're putting it in their windows. And then if you walk in the neighborhood, you might see other people who have done the same project. And it's not just at our school, it is across the Bay Area. It might even be outside of the Bay Area, California. I don't know, actually. But I started hearing about it from other people, and I thought this is a great way for us to start out. So I started with a rainbow here that was, kind of waving along, and I wanted to do different patterns and different textures. This one here is a mix of crayon and art sticks, and I went for some additional colors in there to kind of give it more of that ombre look that I know some of you guys enjoy doing. Same with this one. I added in some extra colors here. We added some teal. We added a couple of different oranges and sort of this berry color to kind of blend between the purple and the red. And depending on what materials you guys have, you will be making your own rainbows as well. Now, if we remember, it starts out with red, and we go into orange. It's pretty slick, huh? My aim is not good. Green. And you see now, if I was like a fancy video editor, I'd have sound effects. Boom, boom. Let's see, next we have blue. And then last we have purple. So this is our standard rainbow. Now you might, whoops, that doesn't go there. You might add in another color over there. You might add in this color there. You could go on that end. Here's another purple kind of color. This is the markers that I'm working with, but you might have some art sticks at home. You might have crayons. You might have colored pencils. There's a variety of things that you will have access to. So one thing that I like to do, actually, and I forgot to show already, is test out my colors. That's the best way for me to know what I'm working with. So I've got a scrap piece of paper here. I've tested out my markers. I've tested out crayons and art sticks. This here is actually I discovered in my crayons, I have 4 variations of very similar colors here. We have scarlet, red orange, yellow orange, and good old regular orange. So testing them out here. This is my scarlet. This is my red orange. Now I can't tell how well you can see on your home device, whether you're on a tablet or a phone or a computer. Colors are going to show up differently for you than they do for me. But you can see they're all very similar. So, that might be something that I want to play around with, is blending. And, there's, let's see here. What's an interesting design? Well, I think I'm going to play around with some gradations. So I'm just really saturating this color right now, coloring it from different angles. So I really fill in kind of that texture on the paper. And I'm gonna let this guy flow. See what happens. We've got a really nice blending here. This art stick, I use some of that too. Getting into more of the yellow. You can see that these are very similar in color here. More oranges. Kind of a pinky color as well. So let's go ahead and test these out. Maybe this is my new test paper. I can't tell. Those might be the same color, just one's really dirty. If the material I'm working with does have remains of other colors on there, that's another thing that's sketchbooks are really good for. Scrap paper is cleaning up your utensils or your materials. So like this right here is dirty. So if I draw, it's kind of dirty there. But I can kind of clean it up. I'm changing sides. Now it's a little bit cleaner and less contaminated for having some pure colors. So that's really helpful. Because some of these colors, when they roll around in a container together, they get really dirty. And I wish I could see you guys making art at the same time, but seeing what you're working on while you're doing it, giving you advice, giving you little tips and tricks and stuff. But as of now, we're going to be doing videos like this, and if you want to share your work with me, please send it to my email address. Your grown-ups and your teachers have my email address, but it is ssharpe@mills.edu. And you can share your work with me there. I'd love to see what you guys are doing, whether it's for the lessons that I'm doing with you or your own projects that you guys have been working on. We haven't seen each other in like 2 weeks. I imagine there's been a lot of creative time some of you guys have been able to spend during your days. So play around with some other colors. What is it like to layer? So with you guys in this video, I want you to play around with what it's like to sort of mix media together. And that will help you kind of make choices of what sort of rainbow project you want to do. Now you've seen some of the designs that I did. You could do a mandala. You could, draw your backyard with a rainbow in the sky. You could draw your house with a rainbow in the sky. If you're going to do that, practice your observational drawing like we have worked on a lot at school, and incorporate those different lessons together to design your own sort of rainbow project. But right now, we're kind of playing around with materials. Now let's see what happens if I color lightly. And then I blend in another color. So I could do this color bold, or I can layer on top of this other purple. And what happens if I press it a little bit more bold? We can see the difference of when it's on the white paper and when it was on top of the other purple there. So that gives me a bit more control for working on creating my own ombre or gradation. I might want there to be stripes. I might want to have a very smooth transition. What is going to be the easiest way for me to blend it almost seamlessly? So I think if I start out lighter, then I can start to layer, and I can kind of go back and forth. So if you notice this sort of texture of the paper that you're seeing, that is called the tooth of a paper. And I've mentioned that with you guys before, that all paper has a tooth to it. Shiny, glossy paper has very little tooth. It's very smooth, so you don't really get texture. This is sort of your standard texture. And then, if you move into rougher papers like watercolor paper, construction paper, what else could there be? Lots of different things. All those different textures you feel is a different type of tooth. And what the tooth does is it allows you to pick up color on the very surface. So if I color in one direction, and I just keep layering and layering, I get one color. But if I go in another direction, it's going to pick up that tooth from a different angle, and it's going to start to get a little bit darker there. So that's why sometimes you see me going in different directions. It's not necessarily because I'm filling in an outline. It's because I'm filling in that tooth, really making sure that it's getting down in those tiny little textures. If we had a magnifying glass, you might be able to see that. But when I press really hard, it's called damaging the tooth of the paper. And that's, I can get a nice bold color. But then if I was using a regular pencil and I was writing really hard and then I wanted to erase it, I'm not able to erase it because I've damaged the tooth of the paper. So we've talked about that before in school. And that's something that might help you with practicing your shading and your ombres. And some of you might be like, that's annoying. I like it pressed really hard. It is up to you. So I've been using lots of warm colors. Miss Sophia, what about cool colors? Well, let's see here. What do we got? Purple's one of those kind of colors that can go in between warm and cool. So it's hard to tell in this light, but when it's closer to blue, it's cool. When it's closer to red, you might think of it as warm. Some of you might still feel like this is kind of a cool color. I'd agree that it's kind of tricky. So purple's kind of one of those funny colors that goes in between. But we've got some greens here. Got some blues. Another very similar lime greens, but not exactly the same. Another blue. Oh, and I do have yellow. So I'm going to start using my yellow to kind of blend into some cool colors. Because if we remember, let's see here. We've got other colors that we should work with. So I'm using art sticks and crayons right now. You might be playing around with markers. You might be using both. Maybe your green marker has completely dried up and you need to use something else to bring some green into your rainbow. You can do mixed media. This blue, I test it out. That's a dark blue. I want a brighter blue. Yeah. And I'm going to kind of blend right on top of that green there. Kind of feather it out. Woo! It looks so different when it's on the white paper than when I color on top of that art stick there. I'm going to get into this darker blue, which, you know, it's called indigo. So I guess indigo is, you know, that mix between blue and purple, which I'm really noticing it now that I'm coloring it next to this other blue. This really feels so much more purple. If I was coloring this on my own, just over here, I'd say, oh yeah, that's definitely blue. But then when I put it next to a different blue, I was like, I really see the purple in it. And now this is my purple color, which looks almost the same. But you might be able to see the difference there. I think I want some more green in there. Now I can use this itty bitty tiny art stick. Oh, here's another one. Might even be a different green. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they are different. All right, good. Got some more greens to kind of play around with. We're going to go right through my name. End up on the other side there. I can use the side if I want to, but I have more control when I use the point. So we've got a lot of different colors blending around in different areas. I've experimented quite a bit with my different colors. Practice blending techniques. Other ways to have a transition between my colors. There's a lot of different things that we can do. And you might choose to do some sort of gradation, maybe across the whole page, going from warm all the way to cool. You might choose to do some type of mandala rainbow. It doesn't have to be a zigzag pattern for each ring. It doesn't have to be the same design around the entire band of that one color. As you can see here, I started filling in these triangles. Over here, I started doing polka dots. My next section, I might do something else. It started out with just the rings, Then I added the zigzags. After I completed all the zigzags, I decided, you know, I wanted some more color. So that's when I started filling in triangles on both sides of each stripe of color. So with this, this art project, this might be something you work on for a couple hours. This might be something you take a break from. Go outside and play a little bit, maybe have some lunch. Maybe this is something you work on after dinner. Or if you're listening to audiobooks or podcasts for your homeschooling shelter in place, doing an art project, working on your rainbow might be something really nice to do. As you can see here, I was practicing lots of different kinds of patterns. So it's up to you where you want to take your rainbow project. Oh, this is my scrap paper that I was testing things on. You may choose to do something where you cut stuff out. You're adding other collage materials or your own design. I could cut this into different sections and collage it into something else. Maybe I do it in my name. Like here we have hello. Hello is 5 letters, HELLO, but I added the exclamation point so that I could still incorporate purple into it. Maybe your whole page is one big word that you want to share to your neighborhood, and within that word you do a rainbow, whether it's patterns or doing gradations. Maybe you have your mandala behind the word. I could collage a word on top of this. I could play around with gradations. There's a lot of different ways that you guys can practice your rainbows, your coloring, your blending, design techniques. There's a lot of free choice with being able to work independently at home and not in the classroom together. As much as I miss being able to see you guys and see what you're working on while you're doing it and giving you tips, this is kind of a special opportunity where you get to be an independent artist. And you guys have worked really hard this year and all the years that we've been working together, where you've built up a lot of skills to be able to work independently. And you guys will be able to do some really beautiful stuff with that freedom. And I look forward to seeing what you guys make. Just taking my time, seeing how these colors blend together. See what happens when I go over this blue here. It did not come out green. Isn't that interesting? Maybe it was too dark of a blue to blend nicely with the yellow. Thank you guys for joining me in art, and I look forward to seeing what you do with your rainbows. Until next time, my friends.